Visa requirements for Russian citizens are administrative entry restrictions by the authorities of other states placed on citizens of Russia. In February 2016, Russian citizens had visa-free or visa-on-arrival access to 105 countries and territories, ranking the Russian passport 48th in the world according to the Visa Restrictions Index. Recently, visa requirements for Russian citizens were lifted by Morocco, Guyana, Botswana, Swaziland, Laos, Montenegro, Vietnam, Venezuela, Honduras, El Salvador, Serbia, Brazil, Nicaragua, Mexico, Chile, Colombia, Peru, Uruguay, Guatemala, Mauritius, Jamaica, South Korea, Costa Rica, Panama, Mongolia, Tunisia, Gambia, Nauru, and Indonesia. Certain countries waive the visa requirement if the visitor is in the possession of a valid visa or residence card of another country. Longer period of stay or more beneficial terms than that for ordinary passport holders is provided by Argentina, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Guatemala, Guyana, Honduras, South Korea, Macedonia, Montenegro, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Philippines, El Salvador, Serbia, Thailand, Turkey, Uruguay, Venezuela. Holders of diplomatic and service Russian passports do not have visa-free access to Israel. An agreement between the European Community and Russia on the facilitation of the issuance of visas has been in force since June 1, 2007. It has unified the cost of visas and made it easier to obtain visas for close relatives, journalists, official delegations, transport crew members and some other groups of visitors. Similar agreements have been signed and ratified between Russia and Denmark on 1 October 2009 as well as Russia and Norway on 19 October 2011. Silvio Berlusconi, the former Prime Minister of Italy, and later Alexander Stubb, the Foreign Minister of Finland, have started public discussions on the future possibility for visa-free travel between the EU countries and Russia. On May 4, 2010, the EU and Russian Federation raised the prospect of beginning negotiations on a visa-free regime between their territories. However, it was announced by the Council of Ministers of the EU that the EU is not completely ready to open up the borders due to high risk of increase in human trafficking and drug imports into Europe, and because of the loose borders of Russia with Kazakhstan. They will instead work towards providing Russia with a roadmap for visa-free travel. While this does not legally bind the EU to providing visa-free access to the Schengen zone for Russian citizens at any specific date in the future, it does greatly improve the chances of a new regime being established and obliges the EU to actively consider the notion, should the terms of the roadmap be met. Russia, on the other hand, has agreed that should the roadmap be established, it will ease access for EU citizens for whom access is not visa-free at this point, largely as a result of Russian foreign policy which states that visa-free travel must be reciprocal between states. Both the EU and Russia acknowledge, however, that there are many problems to be solved before visa-free travel is introduced. Talks were suspended by the EU in March 2014 during the 2014 Crimean crisis. Visa facilitation talks with the United Kingdom, an EU member state that does not belong to the Schengen zone, and thus determines its visa policy independently, were suspended by the British government in 2007 following the poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko. In March 2009, U.S. Consul General Kurtman stated that the U.S. and Russia were having talks on abolishing the visa regime between the two countries. Since January 15, 2012, special arrangements exist for the entry of Russian citizens into U.S. territories, Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands. Despite not being included in the Guam CNMI visa waiver program, as part of a parole arrangement, Russian citizens in possession of a machine-readable passport, a completed Form I-736 and Form I-94 and a non-refundable and non-transferable return ticket can visit both Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands visa-free for up to 45 days.